Welcome back, everybody. This is Dan's Racing and Simulations. I am, of course, Danny, and thank you so much for joining in for today's show. For today, I want to give you my long-term review on this product right here. This is, of course, the Thrustmaster TH8A shifter. Now, mine may look a little bit different than what you're used to, and that is because I actually have the Ricmotech short throw add-on. And I will talk about that a little bit later. But if you were to remove this red piece that you see right here, which is actually just a sticker going around a black piece of plastic, you would in fact see the standard Thrustmaster TH8A shifter that you've probably heard about. Now, I actually purchased this particular shifter right here November 27th, 2015. That puts me just past, literally a day or two past, 2 years of ownership with this particular unit. Now, full disclaimer, this is the second unit I've owned. I owned this one for 2 years, and prior to that, I had another one that I had for roughly about a year. I had actually purchased that one literally when they came out in 2014 roughly. Now, at one point in time, I ended up selling all my sim racing gear because I was not sim racing at all, and that is why I got rid of the original one. There was absolutely nothing wrong with it. I used it around a year, maybe a little bit more than a year, somewhere around there, and I sold everything, my wheels, my pedals, my shifter, but there was absolutely nothing wrong with it. Same story here with this one after 2 years, and of course I'll talk about durability in a minute, but before I talk about the durability, I just want to give you some quick specs. Not going to give you box stuff, but just give you some examples of what we've got going on here with this shifter. So if you don't know, this is part of the Thrustmaster ecosystem. This shifter, it can work in two ways. It can work as a gated shifter, which is the way that I actually use it. It has, let's make sure I hold this the right way for you. It actually has the options to map 7, let's see right here, 7 forward gears and then 1 reverse gear. So that's pretty good because that helps you out a lot in games like American Truck Simulator. If you do any of those trucking sims, it's nice to have those extra gears to use. It's not just a 6-speed or a 5-speed shifter. It has 7 forward, 1 reverse. So those extra gears really do help out in many sims. Now, the other thing that I want to mention is that you can actually use this as a sequential shifter. And I'm going to get into the pros and the cons of this shifter in a little bit, and I'll talk more about the sequential portion of this shifter later. But what I want to tell you about is that basically how this works is you see these 4 set screws that are at the corner, 2 on this side, 2 on the other side. Basically, those unscrew, this metal cap comes out. The whole internal portion of this spins 90 degrees, it might be 45 degrees, but it spins around a little bit. There's another cap that sits on here, and then basically this just moves a little bit like this, and that's how it becomes the sequential shifter. So you can fully utilize this in either a gate shifted pattern or a sequential shifted pattern. So that's pretty cool because it's basically 2 shifters in one. But I'll get more in detail on that when we get into the pros and cons of this shifter. Now, of course, I'm going to do a long-term review. The main thing that I want to talk about here is durability. How well has this shifter, how has it held up through the test of time? Now, I know, the last time I did a Thrustmaster product review was my Thrustmaster TX wheel, and in the comments there were loads of people saying that they had issues with their Thrustmaster wheels, with their Thrustmaster products. And I will fully admit that if you go on forums and things like that, you will see loads of people who claim to have issues with Thrustmaster products. And that is a shame, but you can't hide it. They have kind of had an issue with, just their how long their products last. And the way I do my reviews, guys, I'm going to give it to you straight. If I've had problems with something, I'll let you know. I'm going to tell you the good and the bad. I'm just going to give it to you straight. This is unbiased stuff here. Fortunately for the shifter, for the TH8A shifter, this is a pretty solid product. I haven't really heard anybody say they've had any issues with this product at all. You can see visually on the exterior of this, nothing is wore or weathered. Even the sticker is still here and intact. None of the base, of course, this is a metal housing here. This is all good. The wire's not falling off. Everything's good to go. Even the shifter knob, which is kind of like a cheesy plastic fake aluminum kind of thing, that is still intact, still in good shape. No issues with that at all. Everything on the exterior, both plastics and the metals, working great. Everything internal, no issues there. Completely mechanically sound, still working perfectly, absolutely no issues. And I have used and abused this thing. So from a durability standpoint, this works flawlessly with absolutely no issues. The only thing, like I said, I'll give it to you straight, guys. The only thing that has wore down over time is basically this rubber piece. It's a very thin piece of maybe rubber or plastic. I don't even know what it is. Hopefully you can kind of see that in there if I can get it focused. But anyways, all that is designed for is to make the shifter not as loud when you shift. It's basically just an absorbent is what it is. And just from me shifting it over and over and over again, it has wore through that. But there still is a metal rod. This same metal rod is underneath that, and it is intact. No issues, no damage. I could probably get something else, maybe even some duct tape, wrap it around there, and it would work exactly the same as this. So that's not a big deal. That's going to happen regardless. I knew that was going to happen, and it did. But I wanted to mention it to you guys because durability-wise, that's the only issues I've had. Now, what I want to talk about here is the Ricmotech add-on that I have here. Now, basically, I'm going to get right into the cons. That's what I'm going to do, guys. We're going to get over here. We're going to get into the pros and the cons, but I'm going to start off with the cons first because they're kind of terrible. So one of the cons about this shifter is that the stock gates, the length of the gates from front to back was extremely long. And it's actually still pretty long now, even with the mod on it, but it was incredibly long. It was like shifting a 1972 Ford F-150 pickup truck really, really far. If you've ever heard that phrase of shifting from the front seat to the back seat in a car, that's the way this was. I'm not sure why they designed it like that, but the throw was really, really long, which was terrible. So Ricmotech is a company that creates this product here, which is basically a very strong plastic. It's just a plastic. And it basically, let me see if you can see in there. Try to get the light down in there. Maybe you can kind of see it. You see the black down in there? All it does is a very simple concept, is it lifts up the base of the shifter itself, and then it closes up those gates a little bit so that you don't have to shift so far. And while it does seem like it's kind of moving pretty far, it still makes a huge, huge difference. I think if you're going to use the Thrustmaster TH8A shifter in a gated form like this, I think that you need to invest in the Ricmotech mod add-on because it makes it much better. While we're talking about cons, I'm going to talk about a couple more. You hear that? Okay, that's a big time con. A lot of times people sim race at nighttime. You're in a quiet environment. You don't want people to hear you. This is a very loud product. Even when this was intact, it was still loud. No matter if you do it soft or hard, it's very, very loud. So that's kind of an issue if you're in an environment where you've got children maybe inside or people that live in an apartment complex with you. Just keep in mind that this is very, very loud, and you just want to understand that there may be people that end up hearing you when you're shifting through the gears or rowing through the gears. I'm trying to think. I don't have any paper I'm reading off of. I'm trying to think if there was any more cons that I can think of. Other than it being loud and the gates being long, I mean, that's really it from the gate shifted standpoint. Now, I do want to take a minute and I want to talk about the sequential shifting. Now, I mentioned that you can use this as a sequential shifter or a gate shifter. I don't like using this as a sequential shifter. So if you're considering purchasing this to use as a sequential shifter only for your racing in, say, iRacing or something like that, I would probably steer away from this. The reason is because it's just a very basic spring mechanism, And so it doesn't feel like a sequential shifter. A true sequential shifter, you apply a little pressure and it releases, and then it has a very solid click into the point where you're upshifting, and the same thing in reverse, downshift. It's a very solid, a very positive feeling with a click. This is just basically a spring system, and it just feels like rubbery, and it doesn't really move that much. And a lot of times I find, even on the best stands, like I have this directly bolted to my GT Omega ART cockpit, and even on this, I find when I use the sequential shifter, it's really wanting to bend the stand itself instead of sequential shifting, if that makes sense. It just doesn't feel positive. It doesn't feel that great. So I kind of steer away from using this as a sequential shifter because it's just not that great. There are other options out there if you're just looking for a sequential shifter. If you're not interested in the gate shifter, go with another option for sequential shifting. So that's really it for the cons, guys. There's not really a whole lot of bad stuff about this. So I want to talk about some of the pros. Okay. Obviously, one of the pros is the durability. It lasts a long time. I have no doubt in my mind, other than me having to maybe replace this thing that suppresses the sound of it, it's going to last another 2, 3 years, 4 years probably until I replace it with something better whenever something better comes out. I guess technically the fact that you can use it as a sequential or a gated shifter, even though it's not that good in sequential mode, just the fact that this is 2 shifters in one, that's definitely a pro. I'm trying to think. I mean, this is a really good shifter. I mean, you know, as far as like listing out a bunch of pros and cons and stuff, you know, it's kind of hard to do, but all I can really say is that this is just a really good shifter. It's well worth the investment. I personally prefer rowing through gears, whether I'm driving a street car, even a race car. I just prefer using the clutch and rowing through the gears. It's more fun to me, especially if maybe I'm in a test and tune kind of environment. Sometimes if I'm really racing, I'll use the paddles because that's quicker. But yeah, I mean, this thing is just really, really good, really durable. 2 years, and this literally still looks brand new other than this little plastic piece right here, which is easily replaceable with duct tape probably. But yeah, it's really good. There's one more con that I may add to it, and that's just that the shifter knob itself is kind of made out of this cheesy plastic. But you know, it's a standard twist on knob. So you could go to your, any auto store and you could literally go pick up whatever your favorite shifter knob is, twist it on there, and you're good to go. So that's it, guys. I don't want to make this too much longer, but overall, this is a very good product. It lasts a long time. And if you are wanting to use a fairly inexpensive option for gate shifting, this is a really, really good option. So, 2 more things I want to add. Sorry about this. One thing is, if you're racing on PC, you can use this as a standalone item. I use this on my PC as a standalone item. I plug it directly into the back of my computer with a USB. Now, if you're wanting to use this on Xbox or PlayStation, you're going to have to use it with the compatible wheel with the system you're using. So whatever Thrustmaster wheel is compatible with your system, whether it's an Xbox or a PlayStation, you're going to have to directly plug this shifter into the back of that wheelbase. That is the only way that it will work on that console. Sorry, that's just the way it is. If you're going to race on console, you have to use the compatible wheel and have to plug it into the back of it. Otherwise, if you're going to use it on the computer, you can plug it in just like a USB. And the last thing that I said I wanted to mention, guys, was if you end up getting the Ricmotech add-on, the short throw shifter add-on, remember to go into the Thrustmaster control panel and adjust where the gears engage digitally. So what I mean by that is in the control panel, there's settings of whether or not the gear engages, you know, here or way out where it normally would engage. From factory, you really have to throw the gear really far to get it to engage. The problem is this Ricmotech shortens those gears, so if you're in game and you don't adjust that in the control panel, it won't register that you've put the shifter into the gear you want. So make sure you go into the Thrustmaster control panel and adjust the digital settings so that it knows when you're actually rowing into a gear. Make those a little shorter in the Thrustmaster control panel like you've done with the shifter itself. So that's it, guys. Very good product. I recommend it. You can pick it up on Amazon or Ricmotech's website, about 160 bucks. It's well worth it if you like shifting gears. And I don't see any issues with this working many more years for me flawlessly like it has. So thanks very much for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next video.